Hi, my name is Angelica Tavares, the youth coordinator at the parish. Through these videos, we want to accompany you during this time of separation. Our hearts are yearning to be together just as the hearts of the disciples on the road to Emmaus. The Gospel of this third Sunday of Easter recounts the story of the glorified Jesus as he approached two disciples as they were walking away from Jerusalem, where everything had taken place. I may say that this passage, the more I read it, the more I find practical ways to encounter Christ. But at the same time, he's expecting something in return from us. I can just imagine their emotions: sadness, doubt, desperation, hopelessness, devastation, and despair for what is to come. I wonder if these are similar emotions we are experiencing now during this pandemic. We all know the story where Jesus approaches them, asks them questions. The two disciples responded in surprise, as it seems like if he was the only one that was not aware of what just happened. Even though Jesus knew all about it, he allowed them to speak and recount it. Jesus then replies by referring to scripture and what the Messiah would have had to go through in order to fulfill all that the prophet has said. Jesus referred to them as slow of heart to believe. Then the disciples urged him to stay with them as the day was almost over. As they were eating, Jesus took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. Once this happened, their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And then Jesus vanishes. Now, how can this bring hope to our lives today? First, we see that it is always Jesus that initiates the encounter with us. No matter our direction, he seeks us out. The disciples were walking away from Jerusalem, a sign of moving away from what they were hoping and believing, but Jesus seeks them out. He's also seeking you out today. Second, Jesus is interested in what is going on in our lives. He wants to hear it from us. Just as in prayer, God knows what we need, but he desires to hear it from you. Third, we also see that in the midst of their suffering, they couldn't recognize Jesus even after all they had heard from him and had seen Jesus do. They knew about him, but couldn't recognize him in their despair. We too, when suffering, at times we may lose the sight of Jesus. In our own suffering, we may forget all that we know about him, all his promises, all that he has done for us. We can easily lose sight of his presence if we don't truly get to know him. It is not about knowing of him, but knowing him. Fourth, despite not recognizing him, their hearts were yearning. Our hearts yearn for Christ, even if we don't know it. We were created to seek God as we would only find fulfillment in him. During this time, I pray that we are all yearning to be back together as a community of faith, yearn to receive him again in the sacrament of the Eucharist, yearn to encounter Christ in our midst. And may that yearning lead us to be obedient during this time of crisis. And lastly, to recognize God in our lives implies an action. When the disciples recognized him, they went back to Jerusalem. How can we demonstrate to others that we've had encountered Christ? Do you see Christ in the one who is in need or suffering? Are we reaching out to those who are alone at home? Are we feeding those who are hungry? Are we bringing hope to those in despair? What are we doing in order for others to encounter Christ? We too can encounter Christ through them. Now, this leads me to some practical ways in which we can live out our lives even though we may be separated. First, let's allow Jesus to encounter us each day through prayer, scripture, and our personal relationship with him. Second, let's reach out to those we know and hear them out. Be that person who will comfort them during their trials and tribulations. Third, bring hope to a family through a word of encouragement or by providing for a physical need. Be the instrument for them to encounter Christ through our generous actions. And fourth, and most important, invite Christ to remain in us and with us, and that his presence brings us joy and peace, even in times of sadness, suffering, despair, and doubt. My prayer is that this journey will lead us to him. Please know that we are praying for you and your families. If you wish to stay connected, you can check us on Facebook and on Instagram. We're also sending daily reflections and parish reminders through Flatnote. Also, if you wish for your teens in your family to stay connected to our youth ministry community, you may get in contact with me as we are meeting virtually to share the hope of Christ. God bless.